negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
Hello and welcome to this edition of FOF Live, presented by Burger and Hicks. As always, you can check out Burger and Hicks on their website. We'll have their phone number down below for all things you may need with Burger and Hicks. As you can see, we have a small room today, but we will have people coming in from the press box to talk a little bit about this upcoming series against two teams that might already have an eye into 2025 and are really looking towards
or 2026.
7, 8, 9, 30. They're looking way ahead. But for myself, I'm hosting. I'm Daniel Rodriguez. We have Eli Sussman, and we have a special guest, Reese Stark. You might know him on Twitter on ExileX. It is great to have you on.
Thank you. It's nice to be back.
Always. Marlins are coming off a sweep, getting swept against the Boston Red Sox, which it looks like, going through our predictions, maybe was the most people really had Marlins maybe losing two, maybe not getting swept. But when you look at the metrics between both teams in terms of how they are offensively, maybe a sweep was the most likely of outcomes between this series. And we could start off. Reese, I want you to talk to me about the game on July 4th. I know you were there. Talk to us about that, because there was almost a no-hitter. There was almost a cycle, and Marlins almost completed a comeback. Just look at this graph. This is a for Sarah Lang. She goes when she talks about that. This is like triple that.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I was watching it with two Red Sox fans too, which is not fun. I'm just sitting there, and it was about like the fourth or fifth inning. And I was thinking, I don't think we've gotten a single hit yet. I was like, wow. So I was just sitting there, and I'm like, well, you can see it even how far in the outfield. And I'm like, that was not close to being a strike. I don't like swinging at that. Like Josh Bell swinging all the low pitches, Jake Berger's swinging at everything, low and away and high. And then after a bit, it was just kind of like, wow. Like, am I gonna watch a no hitter? Like, I'm kind of, it'd be cool to see, but I don't want it to happen at my team. And then the second that ball was hit by Jesus Sanchez, just a crack of the bat, and I'm like, oh, I thought that was gone. Saw it coming, hit off the wall, triple. It's pretty sick. Apparently did like the Matumbo, finger wave after. It was pretty sick. But Jesus Sanchez was on fire. It was great.
Yeah, Jesus Sanchez was for sure the MVP of the series. Eli, I want to get to you specifically on Sanchi. Let's talk about last game with Sanchez, because as Lewis indicated to us, he got 9 total bases after that 7th inning. After that triple, it was just dominant for Jesus Sanchez, where he almost completed the cycle where getting his first hit in the 7th inning. I don't think that's even been done before. But just talk to us. This is just a glimpse of what Sanchi could really become at his full potential.
We've been seeing it for an extended period. It was really over a month ago that we're he's overdue for some of his expected production to turn into actual production. That he's been hitting the ball hard basically all year, but especially over this last month and a half, it's taken off to a new level, and it has brought them up at this point. This is probably where he's crossed that threshold of respectability, where he's now finally like a league average hitter overall, but he's a lot more talented than that even. And this last game showed it. But for him to get those 3 extra base hits off of 3 different pitchers, because the first one was off Pavetta that knocked him out of the game, and then he had that the double and the home run in extras against different relievers. So to crush the ball like that, it's really unique ability. It shouldn't be taken for granted. And he's gotten steadily better at being a better overall hitter as well. Still not a perfect overall player. His platoon splits are still a limitation. You don't want him facing lefties under any circumstances, but against righties, he's a really big threat that the team has. He was good last year, and this year overall, he's hitting the ball even harder than ever before. So as you point out, there's never been a game quite like that from a Marlins hitter where late in the game they accrue that many total bases. And at the same time, when you have a guy that does that late in the game and into extras, you usually win that game. So at the same time, it is kind of a bummer that they didn't have the win for all of his individual efforts. The rest of the team wasn't quite on the same page with him in order to get them over.
I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I was going to ask you guys about the play where Jarren Duran threw it to home, and it seemed like maybe the plate was blocked. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on if you believe it was the right call, having it stand and Sanchi being out, or maybe you guys believe that the plate was being blocked for Sanchi making that diving play at the plate.
Well, I'll say quickly that he should not have been sent. I don't think he can really dance around this anymore. That it's been a shaky season for Griffin Benedict as their third base coach. Just really unnecessarily aggressive, I think, in a lot of these situations. So this particular play, this was in the ninth inning, right? Yeah, where Edwards hits that single up the middle. There's only one out. Because I understand in that situation, maybe that is one where it makes more sense than usual to chance it, and did take a great throw. I was kind of surprised. I thought this had a chance to be overturned because of the blocking of the plate, because he was really set up covering part of it when he received the ball, and there was no lane at all once he actually assumed the position and covered things up for Sanchez. So that is a hazy rule, and it's pretty rare that it gets actually applied one way or the other. It'd be an awkward way to end the game regardless. Yeah, that was a situation where I think you need to understand the outfield arm that you're going up against, and also the runner himself, for all the strengths that Sanchez has as a hitter. He's still an average at best runner. And so that's happened a couple times this year, over aggressive sends in those high leverage situations. So I disagreed with the decision to send him in the first place, but I also thought this seems kind of like they were really pushing it with how much the plate was blocked right here. So I felt bad for Sanchez once he got there, because there's really nothing that he could do to get around it.
Yeah, just a tough situation there with Sanchi. But Reese, I want to talk to you also. What did you see on the Marlins side, maybe pitching, starting off with Kyle Tyler going with 5 1/3 innings? Skip mentioning that he did look good. Maybe the only thing that on Tyler was giving up those stolen bases and maybe not doing so well on the base path, controlling runners. But overall, what do you see from Kyle Tyler and the guy who at the start of the season just might know he'd been in the rotation, and now he's providing quality innings?
Yeah, it was nice to see. Definitely limited hard contact, because that wasn't the best defense we could put forward. Mm-hmm. And just did a good job of limiting it a lot. A lot of just routine fly balls and ground balls. Not really getting the strikeouts. He got some in some high leverage situations, which is you like that. And then the relievers were lights out. No one didn't strike someone out in their inning.
Yeah. At the very end, as a reminder, they lose the game with Matt and Drees on the mound. They just ran out of actual trustworthy relievers right there. Yeah, that sometimes happens at a certain stage of the game. So there's not a whole lot to say other than that, where they're in this moment where there's just constant roster churn almost every single day, different pitcher going up or down. And it's a tough break for Kyle Tyler. I think he's one of their top 5 available starters right now, but they just need fresh arms any way that they could get it. So I think he will come back either right after the All-Star break or maybe after the deadline at some point. The way that he was commanding his stuff was a lot more impressive in this start than his previous couple. So it looks sustainable. to me. I don't know if as a starter, but definitely as a major league pitcher. He's a guy that doesn't have anything else to really prove at AAA. He had that extended scoreless streak down there. So that's been a decent find for them on a minor league deal.
Yeah. Let me ask you two. We could probably start this maybe as a new thing going out. We'll try to test the waters with this. But overall, give me your grade for the Marlins this series. I know they got swept, but how would you grade this series overall for them? I know always getting swept is not what you want from a team, but how do you believe they looked in terms of a grade, Eli? And then we'll go to Reese.
Well, we need to acknowledge the previous couple of games, the ones where they were outscored 15-5. So yeah, if you take everything together, I don't see how you could go much higher than like a C in this one. Or Trevor Rogers himself only going 3 innings, and that's part of this ripple effect of having to other guys going up and down and losing jobs is when your starters don't go deep into games. So that was how inefficient he was. That was a really unfortunate and a bummer. And then, yeah, offensively, especially in that middle game, they just didn't have anything going at all in between. A total garbage run in the 9th inning that made it look closer than it actually was. So Sanchez himself did so much of the heavy lifting, I guess, to give them a passing grade. But I would go, whenever he gets swept, the ceiling on the grade has to be pretty low. So I'd give it a C- for this series.
He stole what I was going to say. Yeah. So I was going to say C- as well. Some of the guys that you want the production for, it came there. Jake Berger did have a home run. I think Josh Bell had a good game. I didn't watch the first 2 games. I was just busy, but I believe Josh Bell did something. Jake Berger had the home run. Jesus Sanchez was fantastic. And then I think, because I saw Belloso start and then Tyler's, I think you like that from your depth starters. They both looked good, even though Belloso gave up 5, but he looked good.
He did. Start. Yeah, I agree with that. With Belloso, 8 strikeouts. There was another quirky stat we pulled up. Highest strikeout total for a Mexican pitcher in Marlins history in a single game. There has not been very many of them, so limited choice to go from. But yeah, I think both of those guys, and Tyler and Belloso, I take them a little bit more seriously than I did even a few weeks ago based on what they showed here.
I know for sure Tyler earned himself another start. Do you guys believe Belloso earned himself another start maybe as time progresses? Do you think if the happens again that Skip might call upon Belloso to give them a start?
Well, in the near term, they might not have much of a choice. There may come a point soon after he's eligible to come up where they need another arm. So whether he's earned it or not, I think we see him again. We could get into it in a little bit, how it's still a long road back for Ryan Weathers, for Braxton Garrett, for Jesus Luzardo. None of those guys are throwing yet. And the process for them to build up as starters is going to take them into August, if not September in some cases. There are going to be these voids in the rotation that somebody has to fill. So that's kind of it. You almost put aside whether they've earned it or not. At the same time, you also have finally some other candidates emerging. I think we should get to before the end of the show about Edward Cabrera, because we think he's coming back on Sunday to make his return. And it's not that far away from Max Meyer going back into the rotation as well. They're finally like stretching him out as a normal pitcher again. So it could just be, I think he would certainly take precedent over either of those guys, Belloso or Tyler. So I think it's just a race between whether there's a spot, there's a need for them to come up over the next few weeks, or whether Max Meyer gets back first. He's kind of their main competition, and it's slowly taking up spots from this rotation.
Yeah, I'm still concerned about Max's 4-seam fastball. We'll look at it, keep comparing it, it just doesn't. Slightly faster, and I think he is starting to throw it slightly faster. Not much, but he's not having the low sides of his velocities, which helps a little bit. But it's so flat. It doesn't move.
No, I have my concerns too, for sure, with him. But we'll find out one way or another, even with him. So I think that's a couple weeks away.
I saw a stat today. I think he has the game for the Marlins with the most swings and misses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
from back in April. Yeah.
Yeah, and we can even talk a little bit about Max and when you guys even expect him to come back. With this someone that way after the All Star break, maybe even closer to August with Max Meyer? And if he does come back, do you see him maybe at a some pitching limit or inning limit? Because that maybe they don't want to use him too much, especially in the season the way this is going so far for them.
Well, I think the team's not going to admit it, but I think it's just a money and it's a service time question with him, where we are about 2 weeks away, 16 days in particular, between when they can bring him back and also ensure that his club control gets pushed back by an entire year. This wasn't the only motivation to send him down, but at this point, it seems like a pretty obvious milestone that is coming into play, where July 21st is the day they can bring him back up. They could keep him up for however long they want, and his club control is still going to be pushed back an entire year from what it was projected to be entering the year. I see no reason why they're going to change those plans for a team that's 27 games below 500, that has these other healthy depth arms that could eat innings if needed, and where wins and losses aren't a big deal. I think that's the day. I think it's going to be right. Maybe they don't make it so obvious. Maybe it's not exactly on July 21st. Maybe it is the following week of that. But I think you see him back before the end of this month, now that his workload has already been limited quite a bit. If I could pull it up really quick, that was the other motivation here, where they wanted him to pitch consistently, but also wanted to pace him so that he's available across the whole 6-month season. Majors and minors combined this year, he's only pitched 60 innings at this point. So if he's in the rotation the rest of the way, a normal 5-man rotation, and throwing, let's say, 5 innings each start, if not a little bit more, then I think they're still going to be comfortable with where he is by the end of the year. So once he comes back up, I think there's going to be maybe, I don't even know what you want to call it, where there's going to be some sort of training wheels on him, but ones that you won't really notice very much at all. I think he's going to be a regular member of this rotation once they bring it up. But as Reese alluded to, it's not a lock that he's going to be dominant or as good as he was earlier this year. He still has to prove that really everything outside of his slider, is the rest of his pitches, really play. And are they going to put him in a situation where he can consistently miss bats the way that he did in that one particular start? It's still a huge question, but I think we'll start finding out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, they might just call it till after the deadline to say, like, maybe someone was calling on him. That'd be what I would do if I was trying to hide that.
Yeah, and we can go ahead and move this on before we get to our break later, and then go ahead in this White Sox series. Let's talk a little bit about the trade deadline and it coming up. It is later this month. We are almost 3 weeks away from the trade deadline, and it looks like the Marlins are going to make some quiet moves. You might have multiple moves for the Marlins. Reese, I want to get your thoughts on it. You're looking at it right here, Mr. America, Tanner Scott, including what he did yesterday, striking out the side against the Red Sox, just continuing to improve and showcase himself that he is one of the top relievers, not just on the market, but in all of baseball. And with Tanner Scott, first I want you to give me the percentage that he's getting traded and maybe what the package for Tanner Scott might bring in.
Yeah, I think it's almost a lock. It's really up to him to just stay healthy. And then I think it really depends on how desperate you can get some teams, especially in division. I think if Bendix can catch the Orioles and the Yankees fighting for his services, you can be very surprised by what could happen, especially if they just get him into a bidding war, just the extra player, try to get 2 players for just him. Yeah.
And for you, Eli, again, maybe the same thing with Tanner, but can you see him be packaged with someone else, maybe like a Jazz or someone like that for the deadline?
Sure, it's a possibility, because I think I've mentioned this before, that really the teams that will pay most for Tanner in a vacuum on his own are the ones that feel they are already a lock for the postseason. Being a rental reliever, like, the sample that you might get from him the rest of this season is going to be so small. It's going to be maybe 20 to 25 innings at the absolute most, and anything can happen. Like, he's as consistently good as he has been over these last year and a half, it's always possible that he slips up a little bit in August and September of this year, and that a couple bad outings like sap a lot of the positive value that he brings. Like the perfect comp to bring up in that as a cautionary tale is David Robertson. David Robertson last year coming to the Marlins, he was supposed to be a really safe upgrade in high leverage situations. And he had a couple high profile slip ups, and he tried his best to make up for it late in the regular season. They made the postseason anyway. But his extra impact comes in October, where relievers can pitch a higher percentage of your innings because of the off days, how things are spaced out, and obviously because of the stakes involved, these guys are willing to go eat a bigger chunk of your innings. Your starters are less involved. That's where he really makes a difference, and that's where teams are really comfortable. So the 4 teams that really, at this point, maybe you want to narrow it down to 3, the Orioles, the Dodgers, and the Phillies feel really good about themselves. The Yankees are really quietly, they are slipping quite a bit. The Yankees have one of the worst records in baseball the last few weeks. They're highly, highly likely to still make it and turn it around. And you'd think as we get closer to the deadline, if the Yankees straighten themselves out, if the Braves continue to be on a nice trajectory, those are teams that would also join that category where they feel like a lock to make it in. And those are the ones that would, I think, be motivated to give the most to get Tanner. But as you brought up, if you package him with somebody else that they have in order to get a really impactful prospect in return, because there's going to be some sort of limit on what a rental could get on his own, then yeah, that opens up a whole world of possibilities that they have right here. The other rentals that they had, Tim Anderson is now officially out of the mix for that after being DFA'd. I think as of this moment, he's not yet been released, but that is coming in just a matter of hours, I would think, once he officially passes through waivers unclaimed. And then with Josh Bell, he's had his moments, but overall, the numbers are not going in the right direction for him. Even compared to last year, Josh Bell is having a slower start than he had last year when he was considered a bad contract swap that the Marlins got him for. So it doesn't. That's another asset that they were thinking about. I'm sure they're going to do everything possible to flip somewhere, but it's highly subject to Bell's performance heating up the last few weeks. Like Scott is the one where the performance speaks for itself, and Reese pointed out, as long as his arm is still attached to his body a few weeks from now, then they will be able to find plenty of takers for him.
Ed, for Reese, do you think there are any sneaky guys that could potentially get traded for the Marlins? You look at a guy like Calvin Fauché. I know he had a rough outing the other day on July 4th, but another guy, Declan Cronin, has pitched very well for them. And if you want to go on the hitting side, Brian De La Cruz has just been really floating around there that other teams might like in terms of outfield DH role. But are there any other guys? Are there some sneaky guys that could get traded besides the big names like Tanner and Jazz?
Yeah, I had the thought yesterday, and I feel like there's a small chance where a team might want to buy in on Jake Berger, where they consider it to be a low, and they think they can help actually get him to produce like he did for us last year. I think that could happen, but I'd be reserved to doing that. I think it's too big of a gap between where you think he could be and where he is right now, and there's so much years of control where that won't matter.
And I have one. Yeah, go ahead. You first.
Then I've also heard, I was talking to someone yesterday. They were talking about Jesus Sanchez is someone that teams might really be knocking down the door for, just because of the same thing. They perceive like the upside to where he is now and years of control. And he's another guy I don't want to. I wouldn't get rid of him right now.
You'll be setting really high on Sanchi, I think, in terms of if teams would want him. I know Isaac, if that happened, he would shut that. He will go bust down the door of Lone Depot Park if that happened. But for you, Eli?
Well, the one that has been in my mind recently that I think is almost higher in the priority list among relievers to move right behind Tanner, like AJ Puck is back to being who he was the first half of last year. You look at the numbers since he went back to the bullpen and you compare them to where they were April and June of last year. It's almost a carbon copy. Sub-3 ERA. The strikeouts are there again. It's a really unique ability to control his stuff for a reliever as well, where his walk rate, for whatever reason, when he was starting, he had no idea where the ball was going. And since going back to the pen, even last year, throughout all of last year, like he throws strikes. He doesn't walk guys at all. He's elevating his fastball really consistently, and the velo it's awesome from the left side. His velo is only a small tick below Tanner's in most of his outings, topping out at 98 and consistently in the mid 90s as well. So he's fully back. He has still 2 more years of club control beyond this year. Let me just double check that. He's really inexpensive salary wise, 1.8 million this year. Any team can afford that. And I assume that teams have already, the ship has now sailed on him as a starter moving forward, but maybe there's a team out there that is still thinking 2025 and beyond, we try this again with him as a rotation piece and try to get it right this time. So that adds to the intrigue and the value. Like, I think he might have a lot more value than people are thinking right now. And even though the overall numbers for this year are still muddied by how much he struggled early on, it's a 5.15 ERA, a 4.28 FIP. It's really ordinary stuff. If you just look at, I think it's fair to totally separate what he did as a starter and as a reliever. And if you look at a reliever, what he's done, the combination of his performance with also those 2 additional years of club control, I'm sure that there's going to be some conversations about AJ Puck going elsewhere.
Yeah, it seems that will signify losing the digital A trade. I guess the way that he's been performing as well. I think it's a perfect time to go into Flip Fish, and then after the Flip Fish, we'll talk to Alex Krutchik in the press box and dive in a little more on the series against the White Sox.
Yeah, time flies. I did not realize we were already this close to the midpoint of the show right here. This is a relatively difficult Flip Fish, as usual, to pick a guy that spent part of their careers with both the Marlins and the opposing team. So this one, Marlins and White Sox. I gave this one a 7 out of 10 difficulty. It might be a little bit easier than that, but take a look. A relief pitcher with Marlins and White Sox, parts of 8 major league seasons, finished up in 2019, and 3.10 career ERA, a left-handed reliever, just 1 game as a starter. I think that was as an opener. So think it over. 6'3", lefty reliever that played for both of these franchises during his career. And we'll come back on the other side of the break with the rest of the show. Stick with us for that as we bring you the rest of FOF Live.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
We'll bring in Krutchik right here, just in case we need him to figure it out. But first, I should have zoomed in a little bit just to make sure everybody gets a clear look at it. You have any idea, Reese, who this reliever is?
Oh, I got no idea. I'm blanked.
Somebody, when the Instagram commenters get it right away, then I know it's actually a pretty easy one. But in the chat,
who
else? We got shout out LMF for nailing it. It is Dan Jennings. Began his career with the Marlins, then went to the White Sox, bounced around to a couple different teams before finishing up. But overall, it's a career to be proud of.
Do you have a Dan Jennings signed baseball LMF? Please write in the chat if you have a Dan Jennings signed baseball.
He's got.
I want to know for every Flip Fish if LMF has a baseball signed by them. But that's the new mission.
Be sure to, if you want Marlins memorabilia, be sure to check out LMF's Twitter account and his eBay store because he's got everything. But this is the one gap in his collection, the Dan Jennings gap right
Get
there.
on it.
Okay.
But now we're joined by Alex Krutchik at the ballpark. Talk to us starting against the White Sox. Jake Berger's old team. I believe there was a scrum with the Chicago White Sox reporters wanting to talk to Berger, him facing his own team, and most importantly, it looks like Baby Gronk is in the building, Alex.
Yeah, I just missed Baby Gronk. I didn't see him personally. I saw it on Instagram Reels, and I was like, oh, that's tonight. I'm looking at a video from 20 minutes ago. So Baby Gronk is in the building, so you know that it is a big marquee game. I also think I'm looking right now at what I think is someone dressed up as a bald eagle. Yeah, you never know what you're going to see at Lone Depot Park on a Friday night. You really never know. There he is. Yeah, he's in good spirits, man. He was happy to see some of the old White Sox reporters. He was just talking about, the good times that he had in Chicago. He still talks to some of the guys over there. We saw him talking to some of the guys on the field before batting practice. So, things were pretty hairy in that White Sox clubhouse the last few years. But, we caught him in a good mood today, and he was just talking positively about his time there.
Yeah, he was former first-round pick of the White Sox, for anybody that's not familiar, drafted, developed by them. He was like the only good thing about the 2023 White Sox leading up until the deadline. And now he's here. But as Crutchett covered on the site, now he is not hitting for the same power this year as he did last season. And so potentially, I don't know, even the White Sox rotation is not exactly an easy team to beat up on. So I'd like to say that this could be a turning point for him against his former team, but it's not a super easy matchup, especially with Garrett Crochet right in the middle of this series coming up tomorrow.
And that's what Skip mentioned during his pregame scrum. The scrum started off by talking about how, the White Sox are struggling too, just like you guys. And then Skip kind of laughed and he said, well, they're still going to be hard to beat because of that rotation. The rotation's the one thing about them that's actually competent, relatively speaking. So it'll be interesting to see. It would be nice for Jake Berger to get back on the horse after going 0-for-5 yesterday with 5 strikeouts. Were they all strikeouts?
Yep.
Not great. It also wasn't a common type of game for him because, like you alluded to, Eli, the article that I have on the site that just went up about an hour ago, he's been struggling with power, but not really with contact. He hasn't been striking out a whole lot this year. So hopefully he gets back on the horse and we see some good stuff from him this weekend.
Mid-off is a generous description for this match.
It's very generous. I wish.
It'll be difficult, especially with the White Sox. I believe they're top 7, 8 in a case per 9, so that'll be very interesting to watch in terms of what they can do against the Marlins. But Alex, what else are you seeing there in terms of maybe the Marlins side? With them, I know they got some new players in the last couple of days, but overall, how's the feeling for the team against the Sox?
Yeah, Edward Cabrera has been in the clubhouse. Saw him today. We asked Skip what the plan was for him. He wouldn't say that he's starting on Sunday because, of course, officially a move has to be made, and he doesn't like to tell the public before that corresponding move has been told. But it's safe to assume he'll be starting Sunday. I spoke to Otto Lopez personally just before he went out and did some field work. He was taking ground balls for the first time since going on the IL with his back injury. Before he took ground balls, he said that his back is already feeling a lot better. I didn't get the chance to speak to him after he did on-field work, but he looked pretty good doing it. So that was a positive update.
What did Skip say about Brian Hoeing? Because this is his first appearance in 2 months, has been on the longest rehab stint, it seems like, in baseball history. And was it more stretching him out as a starter? And maybe how does Skip feel putting Hoeing out there as a starter for tonight? Against, I know, the White Sox, but still you're starting an MLB game for the first time in a couple months.
Yeah, well, it seems like it's something that Skip has been saying since opening week because of the position that the bullpen's been put in. He wants to give the bullpen a break. So he's a starter. He was pitching 2 to 3 innings. I don't think he actually completed 3 innings during any of his rehab outings, but he did pitch into a 3rd inning. I think he went 2 2/3 in his most recent rehab outing, and he went 49 pitches. And Skip alluded to that number, in the 40s, maybe into the 50s as a possible pitch limit for tonight. So I think you're going to see him pitch 2 to 3 innings. The third inning is going to be very incumbent on how efficient he is in the first couple of innings. I think that you'll see him finish the night in that 40 or 50 range.
Okay. And for this game, just as well, what are you hoping to see? Maybe the offensive side for the Marlins. I'm not sure if the lineup has come out yet, or with the lineup as well with Josh Bell, and maybe also having Dane Myers there, and Xavier Edwards now getting more of the rep for shortstop. How do you like the lineup today against the White Sox?
Nothing out of the ordinary. Pretty much other than Otto Lopez, pretty much the same lineup that they've been putting out there. I would just like to see. And this isn't specific to this series, by the way. It's just been like a pipe dream that I've had all year. I would like to see them put up at least a run in each third of the game. I would love to see them get out to an early lead and build upon that in the middle innings and then get some insurance runs later in the game. But again, that's not really series specific. That's just something I've been dreaming of this season with this lineup that they've been putting out there.
Talk to us before we let you go. The injuries. I know there was a lengthy injury report for the Marlins today with a lot of news and notes. What stood out to you about the injury report for the Marlins?
Yeah, nothing too crazy. No one with an ETA yet. It's pretty much just same as before. It wasn't the most interesting report because of that. You see Cabrera threw a bullpen yesterday. Braxton Garrett's just doing some forearm strengthening. Luzardo's doing bike workouts. He mentioned that it'll be 4 to 6 weeks. Or Skip mentioned that it would be 4 to 6 weeks for Luzardo like a week ago. So nothing too surprising. Sixto threw a bullpen yesterday in Jupiter. Was that the 26 pitch one? He's been throwing a lot of odd numbered bullpens, like
33 next time.
16 pitches at 28.
I think 26 was the one before this, so I'll be fascinated to if they're willing to divulge the counts on this one. Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to speculate because I wasn't there. These are obviously private bullpens. The only thing that I will say is that teams never plan for 26 pitch bullpens. That's all I'm going to say. And then other than that, Ryan Weathers is going to be evaluated for throwing next week. So, just chugging along with these guys.
Yeah. So I did want to mention in here that you'll have some company. Crutchett is going up to Cincinnati when the Marlins go over there. So you'll have some company from one of our loyal super subs, TP Joseph. He'll be at Great American Ballpark with you when you do that. Yeah, so keep that in mind. And TP, just remind us one more time between now and then as it gets closer, Crutchett will be in Cincinnati covering that one.
I'll also be in Tampa soon.
On deadline day. So that'll be interesting.
Deadline day. I will be our deadline coverage. Should be a very busy day. Going to say bye to some of my best friends and Tanner Scott and Jazz Chisholm probably.
I'll be paying you'll be one of the only ones there. Maybe you and a couple of reporters get the exclusive, but that'll be at Alex Crutchett. Make sure to follow him on Twitter for the coverage on today's game, as we'll also get his prediction video later on. But I want to ask you two guys. We mentioned Jake Berger, Eli, and Reese. Just overall, is this maybe what you've just been expecting for him? Is there a way for him to turn it around against the White Sox? And then overall, just do you want to revisit a little bit of that trade with Jake Berger and on the other side with Jake Eater?
Go ahead, Reese.
Yeah, I think there's definitely lots of room for Jake Berger to turn it around because his main two issues is chasing and just not elevating the ball, which I think are very fixable things. Because he's at on Savant 4th percentile in chase rate at 40.2%, so he's just swinging. And if you swing enough, you don't strike out because you got 3 chances. You got to make contact with one of them. and then he'll just hit the ball, smoke it on the ground. And it's the modern MLB. Those are going to be caught. You can hit it. Jesus Sanchez is fine now. You can hit it 111 miles per hour. If it's in the range of someone, they're going to get it. And I think those are the main two issues.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't really mention that enough about how strikeout rate and making contact aren't always like perfectly aligned. That if you are just swinging at everything within reason, then you sometimes will strike out less than you previously did. That doesn't mean that things are going better for you, that you're a more complete offensive player. In fact, it can sometimes come back to bite you if you're just not swinging at the right pitches, and if ball off the bat is just not going in desirable ranges for you if you're chasing the wrong stuff. Krutchik had this in the article that we just put up on the site about how at the start of the year, Burker was hitting for power. He did have, I vividly remember when he had that multi-home run game in St. Louis, and that was a homecoming for him. And yeah, for a while, he was one of the few guys that did get off to a good start, even as the team somehow lost every single game for the first week and a half of the year. Like Burger was their standout hitter on that entire team. But since coming back from his IL stint, the overall numbers have been kind of the same, but it would be a lot better if the power was on the same level. For whatever reason, he has just very rarely been able to, by his standards, he's not barreling the ball nearly as much as he did last year. I think it's reflected down there, where last year he was one of the very best in all baseball, 98th percentile in barrel rate, and now 73rd, where he's still doing it more than a lot of other guys. But that's a pretty significant difference, where a lot of those barrels that were hit hard and going over the wall are now hit hard and staying on the ground or staying as low line drives. And so that's been all the difference. That's the difference between being a good everyday corner infielder and being well below replacement level, having just a really bad year any way you slice it.
Yeah. And really quickly, would you guys happen to know the status on Jake Eater? How's he been doing? I know we have to talk a little bit now just because these two were traded for each other. Just how has he been doing for the White Sox at all?
It's been a little bit checked, but it's high ERA and really solid FIP, which FIP can be pretty misconstrued in AA right now just because the ball seems dead, so the home run component. So he's at a 5.09 ERA and a 3.83 FIP and a 3.56 xFIP, which means he's not letting hitters elevate the ball as much.
Yeah, with Jake Eater there, I know he struggled a bit right after he got traded to the White Sox. I believe might have gotten injured just a bit there in that organization. But let's go ahead and talk about these lineups. We got a little taste of the lineups, a little bit of a look with Alex when he was in here. But again, these two teams are eerily similar. Let's go ahead and look at the White Sox side, as Krutchik gave us a little bit on the Marlins. And of course, with the White Sox, the main guy to look at in terms of someone that could do damage and another guy who could potentially be on the move is Luis Robert. Definitely, you could say the all-star, the main offensive weapon for this team. Eli, with Luis Robert, is he going to be the main issue potentially against the Marlins? And how eerily are these two teams maybe also in the catching position?
Well, the catching position is a more fun topic because there were reports that the Marlins were in on Martin Maldonado, that I think it was still before they got Bethancourt. It may have been even after, but I think it was right before that he was a free agent and that they were in the mix for him. And the numbers, he's been heating up, which is how he got his OPS over 300. He was really the worst hitter in all of baseball for the first couple months of the season, and he still is about as bad as anybody. He's been worse than even Bethancourt was, and it just speaks to how uncompetitive the White Sox are and unambitious, that even though any guy would be an improvement over him, they don't really care for this season. So he's hanging around, starting. I think at this point he is starting the less than half of their games. Corey Lee is the one that we should be seeing each of the next 2 days, on Saturday and Sunday. But Maldonado is still in the mix, still on the roster, despite an expected batting average of 154 this deep into the year. He's striking out 35% of the time. A decorated career when he was with the Astros, but he is washed at this point. So yeah,
even defensively. for Martin Maldonado?
I think even defensively, he's just not much of a standout anymore. All things considered, I don't think you would consider him a clear above average catcher at this point of his career. I think that's kind of been the funny difference between his reputation as being a great defensive catcher when he was with the Astros versus the reality of maybe he was just paired with a lot of really awesome pitchers when he was with Houston. So we're at a rare time where both Robert and Eloy Jimenez are healthy at the same time. I did want to mention Eloy because he has missed even more time than Robert overall this season. And Paul DeYoung is having like a surprisingly solid year as their everyday shortstop. As it turns out, like the Marlins would have been, he was a free agent, or I think he was. He was one of the first free agents that signed last offseason. Marlins may have been better off getting him than Tim Anderson. He was even cheaper than TA was. So despite being pretty deep into his 30s at this point, like he might be, he was traded at last deadline when he was with the Cardinals going to, let's see. Yeah, well, the Cardinals, he was traded to the Blue Jays, and now this deadline, like his numbers are even better overall. He's an above-average hitter. He has 16 homers as a shortstop, which not a whole lot of guys do so far this season, at least among the sellers. So the last thing for me is just the fact that they continue to play Andrew Benintendi and bat him this high in the lineup is rough. Like there are actually some interesting stories in this lineup. But Benintendi is just a really sad one because he signed for their White Sox standards, their most expensive free agent signing in team history. They gave him a 5-year, $75 million deal. And he's totally lost it at this stage of his career, unfortunately. And they're totally stuck because of how many years are still left on that deal. But it's an advantage for whoever they're playing that to have him that high in the lineup. He's pretty close to an automatic out, and even when he does something well, doesn't really turn into much of anything.
Yeah, I was going to mention him, just really how difficult it seems like him since he came up to the majors with Andrew Vaughn. Other guys there, I know Tommy Pham. I don't know if he was mentioned for the Marlins at all, but he was signed relatively, I believe, in the middle of the season. Another trade candidate guy. That could potentially be moved at the deadline. But let's go ahead and look at this Marlins lineup, see what we have going on here for the Fish. Reese, I want you to talk to us about Dane Myers and Jesus Sanchez. Talk to us a little bit about some of the outfield guys and that DH position where they have Sanchez in tonight.
I think it's just a rotation thing. I think Jesus Sanchez has actually been a positive defender this year, I believe. At least on Fangraphs. I checked him recently. He's been a positive defender. It's actually been a great improvement, especially with his arm. He holds a lot of runners. I think there was 2 or 3 times yesterday, like guys didn't go to third because it was hit to Jesus Sanchez. Even when him and Jazz went at it a little bit before they dapped each other up. I think it was the right move for Sanchez. He's just got a cannon. And then I like Dane Myers. There's a little bit there with him, especially as a defender, a base runner. He can come in. I think he's done a lot better in his starts than he has his pinch hit appearances. But as a 29, really don't got much leverage on it. And then I like they switched the two between Sanchez and Berger. I think it was a good swap.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, we'll see more of Edwards. This past series was not a encouraging one for his defense at short on a number of different fronts. I've been pretty clear about how I feel about what that's going to look like moving forward, but he'll get a limited opportunity there, I suppose. Maybe that's something they reevaluate once Otto Lopez gets back, how they want to handle that. But yeah, for now, he's getting reps, and we'll see how it goes. I know a lot of people were clamoring for X to get some sort of opportunity and steady playing time at the big league level, and he really can't be much worse than TA as an overall player. So I think everything that he does is going to be very positively received moving forward with him. And yeah, we'll see exactly how things go with him. But yeah, so far he's been in the lineup every single day that he's been on the active roster this year. Yeah.
And we can go in a little bit and talk just before we head to prediction time. Next week is the MLB draft where the Marlins will be picking 16th. We'll have Hector Rodriguez, boots on the ground. He will be at the draft covering for us. We'll get live reactions. Hopefully, if the player they do select is in attendance, we can have Hector interview them. And Reese, I want to get your opinion on what the Marlins might do in this pick. They had the 16th pick. Historically, the Marlins have really looked at pitching. You look at the last year, going back to back with high school pitchers. The Marlins have about just a little over $10 million in their draft pool. How do you expect them to go with the 16th pick? A little bit over slot, under slot, and maybe what side of the ball they might go after?
Yeah, I think it should be a college bet, because I think they started going with all these arms because they knew what they could do. But I think with Bennick's in charge, they're more confident in their ability to develop bats, so they'll try to stay away from it, even though they didn't do it very. But I think they will go college bats. And then I've heard from Aram Leighton, I was listening to his podcast, and he was saying that a lot of these guys are bat first and then just playing where they are at position. But Cam Smith is a guy that can actually play third base. So I think Cam Smith is just the dream scenario. Like, he's on the board and just teleport to the podium. Like, this is the guy.
And that's who we have a mock draft from Hector that I think is going up this weekend, probably on Sunday's third version. And that's his guy too. Cam Smith is among the realistically available guys that will fall down. That's the hope. This is from Baseball America and MLB Pipeline, their latest mocks for what it's worth. Carson Benj from Oklahoma State is another one that I've seen a few times mocked in the very same way as Cam Smith. But both of those guys have been trendy. Seaver King is one who his name has come up quite a bit as well. If he falls into this,
I think it would be a great pick for the Marlins. That's a guy who is the best. I believe they had him as the best defender overall in this draft, and they say his outfielder, his glove can develop more into a gold glove type glove for him in the future. But it's really just offensively for him, maybe induces too much weak contact. But if the Marlins could develop him, that's someone where it's almost a set it and forget it type guy in the center field or one of the corner positioned for him. But that's personally someone I would like for them if you want to move Jazz more into the infield and see what can happen there, and you can really put in someone like Honeycutt in that slot. But Eli, with this, would you like them to see maybe go more over slot, under slot? If that were you, how would you like to allocate the $10 million that they do have this draft?
The other key factor here is they don't pick again until number 56. It's in alternating years. They get different competitive balance round picks, and this is the one of the years where they have to wait a while, and their bonus allotment for that pick is a lot lower. They really can't afford to go over slot with their first round pick, because that might be more than half of their entire bonus pool, all things considered. So that is one limiting factor that I think they're keeping in mind. Really, the only circumstance where they might deviate from that plan is if somebody unexpected drops down. The last time they had the 16th overall pick, Khalil Watson dropped down, and they had to devote a ton of their entire pool to Watson 3 years ago to get him signed. And long story short, that didn't really work out particularly well. It doesn't seem that he's going to come close to hitting his ceiling as a player. Yet he was a guy that on talent you never would have expected to be available right there. And if they do get somehow they get somebody, not that we're talking, these are the guys that I think realistically could fall in that range. But if there's a big surprise, this is why it is really hard to do a mock right in the middle of the first round. It's not a problem that they're going to have next year. Next year it's going to be way higher in this draft.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be a different set of problems where things are that reflects how badly things are going at the big league level. But next year they'll have a greater selection to choose from. But yeah, we will have total draft coverage here. We're going to be doing our live draft stream for I think the third year in a row, counting down to that pick next weekend. It is fast approaching, and I like to remind people that it's now, since they moved back this draft to the All-Star break and in July, it's a reason why the trade deadline activity doesn't really pick up until much closer to the deadline. There's a lot of executives are focused on the draft, and until that draft passes, that's why a lot of these trade rumors are still in the very fetal stages, embryonic stages, because a lot of serious talk really does not start until after these guys get through the draft. They can take a deep breath and then focus on the big league team.
Yeah, and you mentioned next year the Marlins could potentially have a top pick or at least top three, because the White Sox, as bad as they're playing, they won't be able to hold a top 9 pick along with Oakland because of the market size of the team. So already two of the worst teams in baseball have to get knocked down to the top 9, opening the doors for the Marlins. I believe now that would put them at second, Eli, or maybe tied for third around there with the Rockies. But as of right now, it looks like the Marlins are going to have a top 2-3 pick next season. But I'm ready when you are, Eli. Let's do a little bit of prediction time.
This is prediction time.
I don't want to like toot my own horn here, but I'm really good at this.
Daniel continues to be the best of us at this when it comes to our leaderboard for the season. 32 for him to this point. A lot of people picked up a single point in the last series, but you referenced it. Nobody foresaw a sweep coming at the hands of the Red Sox, and that dented the progress that could be made. As usual, we encourage people become a super sub, and you can make these silly predictions with us every single series throughout the entire season for how many games the Marlins are going to win and who the series MVP is going to be. Could be a player from either team in there. A lot of positivity from the early predictions that I saw. I know LMF has the Marlins sweeping the series, Jake Berger MVP. From our own staff, we have a couple of sweeps from both Kevin and from Isaac. Both of them have sweeps going on. There's a lot of optimism, as the White Sox are really the only team in baseball that you could say is clearly worse than the Marlins. That doesn't mean they're going to win, but also the White Sox happen to be even worse on the road than they are normally. They are winning 20% of their road games. They're on pace to be the worst road team in almost 70 years if they continue on this current pace. So, yeah, a lot of things are lining up for the Marlins to pick up a rare series win, but that's why you played the games.
All right, let's do it for prediction time. Eli, I don't know if we have a video from Alex Kutcher. I can't hear you.
Yeah, we didn't get a prediction. No video from Krutchik at this point, so we'll have to I'll have to poke him.
We'll put that in post
before the start of the game, so that we know for sure where he's going to go.
All right, but no Kevin, so I'll start things off. I'm going to go ahead and Marlins take 2 out of 3. They win tonight, and they win that last game. And because in that middle game, Garrett Crochet will be my MVP, I think he's going to have a lights out performance against the Marlins and will earn MVP honors. Reese.
I'm going to go with 2 out of 3. Same, we're taking the first, we're taking the third. I'm going to go with the Sanchez in the MVP.
Ooh.
Eli.
It's a Marlins series win, and I'm going to go pretty conservative here. Also, the Marlins winning 2 out of 3 games. With my MVP pick as well, playing it safe, Tanner Scott, feeling confident that he's going to get into 2 out of these 3 games, both of them in tight situations, that he's going to be successful in both of them. So just a safe pick, that somebody you can trust more so than anybody else on this roster to give you some positive value during the course of a rare, successful series for the Marlins.
And with all of us going Marlins winning, that almost confirms Chicago will sweep the Marlins. But
yeah,
that's going to
this in the visitors clubhouse right now. They streamed us live so that they could get bulletin board material to amp them up right before the game.
Andrew Benintendi took that personal, Eli. All right, he's going to get MVP, multiple home run game. If Martin Maldonado has a multi-hit game, any game this series, I will do a backflip. I don't know, I can't, but I will try to do one. But that's going to do it for us here at FOF Live, presented by Berger and Hicks. For myself, Daniel, Eli, Reese, Alex Krutchik at the ballpark. Again, FOF Live, Berger and Hicks. Go Marlins.